Everyone talks about the logistics of moving, the boxes, the interest rates, the closing costs, the packing, but nobody really talks about this part. And I'm talking about the part that keeps you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's this heaviness in your chest or in your gut. And like it's trying to tell you something real, like maybe that neighborhood isn't the right fit for you. Maybe this whole thing is a mistake. How do you know the difference? Well, because one, you should push through, and the second, you better listen to. So here's the thing, when you're like 25 years old and you're moving around, it's all new, right? And it's exciting. But when you're 28 and you're buying your first house, say, you this it's all forward momentum. You're not really leaving a whole lot behind. You're starting, you're building. But when you're in your 40s and 50s and 60s, maybe even in your 70s, the move is not a logistical thing anymore. It's starting to become super personal. When you have built a foundation or identity in the neighborhood or the city or town that you've lived in, you've got routines. You know where the coffee shop is, you know the map of the grocery store, you know all the back streets to avoid the traffic if you need to. And I mean, that is the fabric of your day to day. And leaving that is not just changing addresses, it's choosing the next chapter, and that carries some heavy decision making. And here's what I can tell you after working with people that have been relocating from Texas to Texas from all over the state or all over the country, especially to areas like Flower Mound where I live, Highland Village, North Fort Worth, North Dallas. Even the hesitation almost always sounds the same. It's not, can I afford it? It's, what if I regret it? What if it doesn't feel like home? What if I miss what I had? And those are not financial questions. Those are questions that you have had in your identity, in your foundation, in your previous home. And that's what makes a difference, more so than when you were younger. But let's talk, I want to kind of talk practical for a moment. When you're younger and you make the wrong move, you can generally recover because you may rent for a year, you may pivot, you may try something different, you may move across the country. Maybe you don't have kids yet, but later in life, that decision feels bigger. And people tell me, and I've even said this to myself when I was moving, I don't want to have to do this again. And that's some invisible heaviness, weight, whatever you want to call it. And that pressure, you have pressure to get it right the first time. Let's put it that way. And now here's where it gets tricky. The pressure can also make you freeze, and freezing is its own kind of decision because it's, you're deciding to stay in the house pretty much by default because you can't make a decision. And I've seen people stay in their homes and in cities that stopped fitting them like long time ago, and by the time they've made a decision, it's, the market's changed, uh, prices have probably gone up, and they may not even be in a physical, because the same physical condition to be able to do it as well. And they couldn't tell the difference between a general red flag and cold, just the normal cold feet of the fear of change. So this is what I've seen and what I believe normal cold feet in a situation like this is. I mean, there's some telltale signs. I've got a couple here, and I want you to listen closely because maybe you have probably gone through this yourself or you've misread them. First would be cold feet is about the change itself, it's not the destination, it's not where you're going to move. When you think about the specific house that you're considering, the neighborhood, the town, if you're thinking about those specific things, they feel unnatural or neutral or even good, but you're still feeling kind of anxious about it or about the overall concept of moving, that's cold feet. Cold feet is, what if I miss my friends? Or, and it's not something in the house feels off, because that's a whole different issue that we'll cover. But cold feet is, what if it takes a while to adjust? It's not every time I picture this neighborhood, it just doesn't feel right. Second, believe me, I'm going to tell you, go with your gut, and we'll get to that. But second, cold feet feels quieter. when you slow down and think about it specifically. When you ask yourself, if you picture the daily life, all those things I just mentioned in a new place, and I mean the boring stuff, the Tuesday morning coffee, where's the gas station, the grocery store, walking the dog, does it feel okay? Does it feel like something you could settle into? I'm not saying settle for, I'm saying settle into. And if the answer is yes and you're still scared, that's cold feet. Cold feet is normal. I've experienced it myself. It means you care. That's it. Third, cold feet passes. It comes in waves. You're going to feel fine for one day, and then you're going to second guess yourself and panic the next. I've done it. The inconsistency is actually a good sign because it's, a genuine gut warning is like steady. It doesn't go away. But cold feet does. So that's something to think about. But here's what a genuine gut warning feels like. And myself as a broker realtor, I can feel it and sense it myself when I walk into a home or into a neighborhood. And I have to be careful how I present myself to people because you don't want to violate fair housing. But here's the other side, because sometimes it's your gut really trying to tell you something, and the people who get into trouble are the ones who ignore it and push through anyway. First thing, a gut warning is specific, and I'm not talking about I'm scared to move, every time I drive through the neighborhood I feel disconnected, or I toured the house 3 times and I can't picture myself in the kitchen, or something about that energy level in the house just doesn't feel right. Okay, notice the difference. Cold feet is about leaving, the gut warning is about arriving. Second, a gut warning doesn't go away when you get practical. All that stuff that I talked about, getting practical, the gut warning doesn't go through that. When you sit down and you say, okay, the numbers work, the house is nice, the schools are good, the commute is fine, and after all that, something still feels off, you better pay attention to it. And you better pick up the phone and call me, because that's not a fear of change. That's your intuition doing its job. The third thing, a gut warning often shows up in your body first. I get stomach pains. I get tension in my shoulders when something doesn't feel right. I don't really have a chest problem with my chest feeling heavy, but that sinking feeling, when you picture that specific house or that neighborhood, that tension shows up about when you talk about that house in particular as opposed to another house. You know what? I had a client that she was torn between 2 neighborhoods. This is a perfect example. One was the smart choice on paper. The other one was where she smiled and just felt at ease when she drove through it. And she couldn't explain it to me. And I understood, but I just listened. And one of them made her shoulders tighten up every time she drove through the steering wheel. But, the second neighborhood, and every time she chose the second neighborhood because that one felt right. But 3 years later, we were talking about something. I had to call her about some reason. And she told me, she goes, I still drive through that neighborhood. And the, you know, sometimes I just feel like, thank God I didn't move into this neighborhood. And she still can't put her finger on it. So it's crazy, but it's true. Now, here's the thing. Let me give you a practical way to test this, because I don't want you scrolling on Zillow or overthinking this at 3 o'clock in the morning any more than you have to. Ask yourself these 3 questions. And if you need some time to write it down, I'll slow down. One, if you knew nobody was going to judge you, your decision, either way, would you still make the move? Because sometimes what feels like cold feet is actually fear about what other people will think. My wife's family is big. I had to just discount that to the side and said, you know what, this is for you and me. It's not for the rest of your family. Are your kids saying, well, why are you leaving? Are your friends saying, why do you have to move? You know, that's not a gut warning. That's simple social pressure. The second thing, Does the idea of not moving feel like a relief, or does it feel like a disappointment? So if you picture yourself a year from now in the same place and it feels like there's this weight on your shoulders and it just doesn't feel right, it's not peaceful, but you're not stuck, that's a strong signal that the cold feet is just a fear. It's not a warning. The third thing is, does the anxiety get quieter when you talk to somebody in the neighborhood? I have seen this happen so many times where people have been on the fence and they go out and look at in front of the house, and a neighbor just happens to walk out and they wave to them and start talking to them, and all of a sudden, and this is a big one, they calm down, and what they genuinely thought might be the wrong neighborhood, um, you know, it calms them down and they get more information and it gets louder, and all that information kind of helps them and gets rid of the cold fleet. A conversation with someone local in that neighborhood, makes it feel like real. I mean, myself as a realtor and a broker, I can explain everything till the dogs come home at nighttime, but you have to connect with somebody that that kind of is an insider, and it makes everything less scary. So these three questions are going to maybe help you eliminate scrolling on Zillow every night for hours at a time. When I This is a personal thing. When I made the move from the city to the suburbs, I'd already lived in the suburbs a couple of times and didn't have a really good experience. And it was just the area that I was living in. And I wrestled with this exact same thing. And I didn't know if I was running towards something or running away from something, running away from the city. And I can tell you, with sitting here with uncertainty, it's uncomfortable. But the fact that I was asking the question at all, or that you're asking a question at all, uh, that's you're operating from a position of strength. You're not being a weak person. It just means that you're paying attention to what's going on. People honestly do not regret moving, but they often regret moving too long to move. And I went through that myself 2 years ago, so I can speak from firsthand knowledge as somebody who does this almost 7 days a week, year round. And here's one thing I noticed: that people make the best decisions when um, it's later in life for them. You know, it's a different season. They're not the ones who feel zero fear. They're the ones that feel the fear and they walk through it anyways because they have experience. Slowly, thoughtfully, you know, you get the right information, you're working with the right people, and you got the right people helping you. So if you're in that space right now, and the weighing, the reflecting, the 3 a.m. questions, you're not behind. I mean, you're just being thoughtful. You can use the word intentional. You can use 100 different words, but that's usually the first sign that you're making the right decision, and it will be the right decision going forward. So drop a comment if this resonates with you. I'd love to hear from you in the process. If you have any questions, I'd like to hear them. And if you're thinking about relocating to Texas, grab the guide below. My information is listed all over the place. I'm Chris Hooper Realty, and I will see you next time.